Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Rush Racing League here in the NA division, where our drivers are getting ready to tackle Miami, Florida, my home track, and I'm so excited to be here with this fantastic league in this fantastic division for the first race of the season with points. So it's going to be a lot of fun here. Miami is such a tricky track to kind of navigate. And with weather being up for debate, I wonder if we'll see something similar to what we saw in Canada with the changing weather conditions. My name is Rekus, aka Patrick Coleman, and alongside me is the one, the only, GameHawk. How are you, my friend?
I am doing absolutely fantastic. I'm ready for more F1 action, as you said, in Miami, and I kind of agree with you. It would be very interesting to see if we get another Canada situation with the changing weather conditions, but I'm doing all right. I'm ready for this action and first race with points. So this is going to be a very interesting start to the season.
Indeed, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun here in the Sunshine State. We'll see if we actually get sunshine or not as we go ahead and get going. We're still waiting on a few drivers to go ahead and jump into the lobby, so for the time being, until we get that going, this will be the unofficial NA League podcast with your hosts Rekus and GameHawk. So it's the first points race of the season here in NA. So do you have any predictions on who to watch out for, and who do you think is going to rise to the top, or who do you think is going to struggle in these opening stages?
I think it's gonna go roughly the same idea as how preseason went, and I think it's gonna be interesting to watch people like Meraki Dawn and even our last winner Wildcat and Caxel, because they showed very, very strong promise in the preseason. So it would be really good to see if they continue that momentum. But I also think that, in my opinion, I think we might see the McLaren start to struggle. Originally, Meraki Dawn was on the McLaren, but now the McLaren consists of Ty and Cam. So I'm really curious to see how that's going to take a hit to the team, as they don't have their star driver per se. But it's going to be really interesting to see who looked at preseason and who is going to take that momentum into the regular season. So I don't know. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. There's also some new drivers on the grid as well that didn't partake in any of these preseason races that we had here. But there's also some drivers that also compete in the OCE divisions as well. Like some of the returning drivers like the Governor, Meraki Dawn, GM Reigns. Those are all drivers I have seen. H-Town Realtor into Sauber. These are all drivers that I have seen compete in the OCE divisions. And they've had some pretty up and down performances in OCE, but OCE and NA are two completely separate sides of the same coin. So, but there's also these newcomers that we didn't see during the preseason, just to name two of them right off the top of what I'm seeing here on my screen. Of Tinzo and NYC Gaming are two drivers that at least I haven't seen during the preseason, so they're kind of dark horses here, or massive wild cards. So really curious to see how they go ahead and handle this track, the first race, potentially even in league racing in general. And that's the thing I absolutely love about seeing these newcomers come to Rush Racing League and go ahead and test their mettle against some of the best drivers in North America and OCE. And without any further ado, we're about to go ahead and send it live to qualifying. We have 18 drivers on the grid, nearly a full grid, not quite there, but we're still going to have 18 extremely quick drivers go ahead and take this course. And without any further ado, GameHawk, let's go ahead and send it to the track.
Yeah, as we load in here to qualifying in Miami, and as many probably F1 fans, and me included, know, Miami is a bit of an interesting track, especially that a lot of people really don't seem to enjoy the track. But in any case, it always kind of leads to very interesting racing, whether it's the rain or kind of the setting of the pace, because I have seen many races won or lost due purely to strategy and what tires they switch to, where sometimes it looks like the mediums are the best way to go, but then I'll see other people where they'll take the strategy and go on the hards, and they will go further ahead of the other drivers. So no matter what angle you put it at, it is always going to be a very interesting experience here in Miami, as we have full qualifying, full 3 sessions, and with 18 drivers. I'm assuming that 18, 17, and the 16 driver will be eliminated after the first session, and then we'll go into the other sessions to see who will set the absolute best times.
Indeed, yeah, and I mean Miami, it's a bit of an interesting track too, because it kind of like Barcelona, it does have pretty much everything you could ask for in a racetrack. It's got long straights. You got corners of pretty much every speed, and up until 2020, the 2023 spec Barcelona, it also has a really awkward chicane that most people really don't like. Barcelona has that chicane obviously at the end of turn 13, and then here it's right before you get to what I like to call the overpass at the end before you hit the second DRS zone, or actually, yeah, the last DRS zone on this track. It's a weird little chicane where you go under an overpass and then just go down a massive straight down the back straight. So this track does have some interesting characteristics. Curious to see how these drivers will go ahead and navigate, because this is the first time Rush Racing League will actually hit Miami since we've started using F1 25 as the game of choice. So OCE hasn't ran any Miami, the tracks they've done so far. You had the evaluation races, including Bahrain, Brazil, Singapore, and I feel like there's another one that's escaping my brain. It actually might have been Barcelona. But then we have the only other races that they've done so far in OCE with, you have Qatar, or not Qatar. Qatar's coming up. Qatar's this week. They did do one Qatar race already. I think Division 1 hasn't ran with Qatar. And then previously it was Monaco and Jeddah, which are 2 completely different tracks. I mean, they're street circuits, but there's a bit more runoff here in Miami.
Yeah, there's a bit more runoff, and like you already said it, but this is just a very kind of interesting track, and I'm very curious to see how our drivers are gonna kind of interact with that, because I've seen some people where they take a more faster approach where they want to get as much speed going down the long straights that Miami is here to offer. But at the same time, I've seen the same thing where those drivers will have issues in some of the winding turns and the sharp chicane underneath the overpass. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the drivers will interact. As you said, this is the first time that they're going to hit this track. So none of these drivers really have as much experience as you would probably like, but I mean, I would assume that if you're able to handle Jeddah, I can imagine that you're able to handle Miami very well, in my opinion.
Yeah, Miami does. It has some semblance to Jeddah, and maybe a little bit of, here we go. This is a bit of an issue. Massive collision between Umbreon and the Wildcat, resulting in a grid drop for Umbreon. So yeah, that's a interesting one. Oh, so actually both drivers got hit with a grid penalty. Both Wildcat and Umbreon for the same thing, for a massive collision with each other. That's an interesting one, honestly. I can't say I've always seen it where one person gets hit with the penalty, but I haven't seen where both drivers got hit with the penalty at the same time for running into each other during quali.
Yeah, that is something new. And I was looking at the 2 drivers. The Ferrari of Wildcat didn't have any damage, but Umbreon was missing almost an entire 1/2 of their wing. So I'm not entirely sure what happened between the 2 drivers. You can see that we have our first driver that set their own time, and it's Ty in the McLaren setting a 1 minute 25.908 to start. And actually you can see there's a select group that are not running the softs. Am I right, Rekus?
Indeed, yeah, there's a few drivers running out on that medium tire. Both of the Ferraris of Merakidon and Wildcat, and then you have the Red Bull of Caxel running the medium tire compound. Now, when it comes to Rush Racing League and the rules, you are allowed to run any slick tire during these qualifying sessions. You cannot run an intermediate, however, because in some leagues, I think even F1 Esports, they allow you to do your kind of banker laps on intermediates for some kind of silly reason, but you cannot do that here. I believe it results in a quali ban if you manage to do that here, but yeah, so it's not too uncommon to see drivers using those mediums, especially kind of to save a set of soft tires, because you can really burn up some of your tires pretty quickly, especially through the S's, and especially with the how the F1 tire or F1 25 tire wear model is, then it's it can be a bit tricky at times.
Yeah, it can be very tricky, but I will say something interesting about that is that on the mediums, they set pretty decent times. Caxel right now in 4th on that medium compound with a 1:27.887, and that's not too far off of. He's right now in 4th. That's not too bad, and that's actually ahead of some other drivers who are on the softs. So maybe running the mediums, you're saving that extra set of softs, but at the same time, if you're able to set a really good time and go through qualifying, then I think that is the best strategy for them.
Yeah, as Ty goes ahead and he feels very satisfied with his lap time. He's got a 1:25, and actually some drivers are retiring pretty early, as NYC Gaming in the Racing Bowl has also retired early on. He's in 2nd place at the moment, just about half a second away from Ty in that McLaren. So very interesting to see if how that's gonna happen, and see. I'm curious if those times are gonna stick, because I mean it may, because we've seen a pretty wide gap of times in NA, but anything can happen in racing.
Yeah, anything can really happen, and I guess that they really think that they are that confident in their times that they are not going to be knocked down, which, to be fair, it is qualifying 1, and I think if you set your absolute best time, that you probably feel very confident that you won't have any issues. But at the same time, it is a little bit of a risk. It is definitely an interesting risk, is now we have a 3rd one. Gags also retires as well, so they feel very confident.
Yeah, and it's even weirder for Gags, because he's 1.6 seconds off of Ty's time. So I wonder, it's either like what you said of these drivers feeling extremely confident around this circuit, or B, maybe they know something that we don't concerning the weather. Maybe they know that there's going to be wet weather in the next session, or even at some point during this session. Although considering that the Sunshine State so far is living up to its reputation of being a sunny place, there are a few clouds in the sky, but I don't think it's going to rain at all during this first qualifying session. Maybe in Q2, because I know we saw that kind of event happen in Barcelona earlier on during the, or actually in Canada during the preseason, I should say. But yeah, interesting stuff, because so far only 3 drivers are within a second of Ty's time, and one of them did it on the mediums, and oh yeah, Barry's out.
That is rough. Yeah, I was spectating him, and looks like he lost it through the S's. He got through the first one, and then he tried to pivot into the next one and lost it and hit the wall. So he does retire, but right now that's going to put him in 15th right now, even though he did set a 1:29. But now it comes down to see 15th is still in for the second qualifying session, as 17, 18, and 16 are going to be the ones eliminated. But you can see we were talking about the drivers who had retired because they felt confident. But at the same time, you can see that Meraki Dawn actually split that group up and set a time faster than Gags in the medium. And you can see he's going into the pits now. But already, I guess he's feeling they felt confident enough that they weren't going to get knocked down. But you can see that people like Meraki Dawn can really kind of level the playing field, as they can set a fast time no matter if they're on the mediums or the softs. So very interesting already here in qualifying.
Yeah, not to mention pretty much the three drivers directly behind Barry in the current qualifying timetable have yet to set a representative, or actually any time period. So H-Town is going to be the next one to go ahead and set his time. He's coming on the last few corners now, going through the hairpin, just coming off of the highway. And he's going to put the foot to the floor, burn the battery. If he improves at any point, then he's going to knock out Barry. And he jumps up to 6th. Wow, what a time. Surprisingly, though, he's still... I mean, Barry's still in this somehow. Tinzo got dropped down to P16.
It might be the F1 system doing F1 system things, but that is a really great time from H-Town there. And actually, look at this. Caxel was on the mediums originally, and Caxel has now switched to the softs. So, and already trying to do their fast lap. So, at least one of those drivers switched to the softs.
Indeed, yeah. Now there's a few drivers who are about to go ahead and start their lap. And let's switch over to King Kong here as he goes ahead and begins his flying lap. He's going to make his way down into turn number 1. There's a bit of an overcorrection there going into turn 1. He kind of snapped under braking there as he's getting ready to tackle the S's in Sector 1. As they race right around the Hard Rock Stadium, he's going to go ahead, and he seems like that Red Bull is not quite stable underneath of the driver as he makes his way through the S's, having to fight that car quite a bit. And now he's going to go ahead and put the foot to the floor, pedal to the metal. It is a purple Sector 1 though from King Kong, so that is at least a promising start. He's going to go ahead and start the DRS zone in Sector 2, making his way all the way down under the Crypto.com banner into Fanatec corner. And now he's going to go ahead and go through and get ready for the really sharp chicane under the overpass. Hard on the brakes, going through. That's a really pretty unpleasant chicane. And now going a bit wide, not really using enough of the apex to get a good exit out of, or going onto the highway now. Now he's going down the highway. DRS turned on, burning the battery, coming down to the final corner here. Final 2 corners. Hard on the brakes. It looked like he was deep for a bit, but on my screen he kind of just lag resetted back. So we'll see what this time is going to be. He's coming across the line, and it's good enough for P14.
Yeah, that was a really good lap. I mean, he said a purple Sector 1, so he started great, but I think that Sector 2, especially around that chicane area, really kind of hurt his time. But actually, surprisingly also, I was keeping an eye on his Red Bull brethren, his teammate, Caxel, and he went out on the softs. He was not able to beat Meraki Dawn's time in the medium. So he did have a time faster than Gags, but his time was not fast enough to get past the Ferrari as well. So you can see, so it looks like Meraki Dawn set probably one of, if not the best lap that you could set with the mediums. And as we approach 4.5 minutes, so far you can see that so far everyone has already set a time, and the majority of the people are in the pits. Do you see anyone else trying to attempt another lap?
I would probably venture to say King Kong and Tinzo definitely going to have to try another lap. Pedro, we need to try to get Pedro back into the session. I don't think he's appearing online on my end. I've looked. Maybe do you have him on your end, perhaps? Maybe we can see if we can get Pedro back into the session, because I know we got disconnected earlier, and I tried inviting him, didn't appear online, so unfortunate there. The crazy thing is that Barry is still in the top 15. Although I think because he crashed, it actually might not let him continue through, so he might be losing P15 down to P18 in the session. We'll have to see how that plays out. I think that's actually kind of what happened last time when we were at Barcelona. I think that exact same situation kind of happened where there's a car that DNF'd and they got included in the cars that didn't make it through to the next session. So right now the drivers that we're looking at of losing is both of the Alpines, the Williams of Tinzo, and not Pedro Jr. in the Racing Bull. but there's still a few minutes left of qualifying. So once again, anything can happen here. Although there is a very slow-moving Alpine potentially trying to earn maybe out of fuel, because he surely doesn't have enough battery to go in and make an attempt. But luckily, Miami is a pretty wide track through most of it, so especially on this Sector 3 massive straight down the highway. So it's definitely a good thing that he was able just to kind of pull out of the way.
We had a big
I
moment
think he was out of
well.
fuel, actually.
We had a big moment in Sector 1. The Williams of Tinzo now missing their front wing, but again, almost is the exact same place in the S's. Went a little bit too fast out of the first turn, tried to go a little bit more into the second turn and spun, and now their front wing is missing. So that's 2 cars right now. We talked about in Spain how it was turn 4 seemed to be the downfall, and it looks like the S's seems to be the kind of bane of the driver's existence today. I think we have a Kick Sauber there too that was stopped for a second.
I think these drivers are just trying to build up everything they can do to go ahead and get ready for their next runs as we're closer and closer to the end of Q1.
Oh yeah, the Kick Sauber is missing its wing. The Kick Sauber is missing half of its wing in the exact same place. So it looks like the S's is the area to watch in this race.
I mean, especially with 25 having a bit of a snappier handling model compared to 24. It is pretty easy to lose it in the S's, as I've noticed myself. So, I mean, even with traction control, it is very easy to kind of lose it inside of those S's, because they are very high-speed S's. You take them faster than you would the S's in Suzuka. So, I mean, it's very high speed. I mean, you're basically just about going flat out throughout those S's, so it's really tricky. A really tricky section of corners, and I think that is the qualifying of Tinzo. Done and dusted, and Cam is out for parking in a dangerous location. That is one of the McLarens. That's the P13 McLaren. So that drops him out. We actually might still have an Alpine in the session after all. Baffling stuff here.
I'm still muted. Apparently, eventually as we go through the season, I will figure that issue out. But I was spectating that McLaren, and he was at the end of Sector 3, and I'm not entirely sure if he disconnected or if something happened, but it didn't look like he was moving much, and yeah, so he gets disqualified from the session. You can see, I think this might be the most drivers that I've seen retire out of Q1, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the key thing to note is that for most of these drivers, I think with the exception of Barry and Cam, all these drivers who did retire are going to, most of the drivers are going to go in and pop back in the next session. They've just exited this particular session, and as long as they make it to the next stage of qualifying, they will go ahead and be able to jump back in once Q2 starts. So that is, so it's not like Tai just abandoned the rest of quali. So he'll be back for Q2, same with NYC Gaming. So I think the drivers we have lost, which we'll see once the timing screen loads up again, is we have lost Barry, Tinzo, Pedro, and Cam. We have lost those 4 drivers from this session. Maybe John, maybe we lost the other Alpine, but I think the other Alpine is safe, as it is down to the final 2 minutes left to go. No one's under any real pressure of invalidating, or no one's really in danger of getting eliminated now, or no one knew really, because the only driver to not finish is a driver who's already in that top 10 and his lap is invalidated, so he can't really demote anybody at this stage. It is the Ferrari of Wildcat. But considering that Ferrari has had kind of an up and down season in both NA and in OCE, it'll be interesting to see if Ferrari can start turning it around here in North America.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. It's going to be very interesting to see how all of the teams are going to be, because you're talking about how we want to see if the Ferrari can do a little bit better. But I am curious to see how the rest of the teams are going to be. McLaren is one of them, because the McLaren looked very, very strong when Meraki Don was a part of that. but now you can see that the one McLaren did get pole for Q1, but the other one didn't finish the session.
Yeah, so that's a interesting thing to note. As the qualifying session results have loaded, did they load for you, or is it just me that hasn't loaded in yet?
Yep, they have loaded for me.
All right, go ahead
And
and read off who got eliminated.
the ones who got eliminated is from 15 to 18. Barry, Tenzo, Pedro, and Cam are the 4 cars who were eliminated. So 15th did get eliminated from Q1. So unfortunately, Barry was eliminated. So now I'm assuming that it'll be the next 4 cars from 14th to 11th that will be eliminated, and then we'll have a top 10 as we're here in Q2 and getting ready to see who is going to step up here.
Indeed, that is how it's going to go ahead and play out. We'll lose P11 through P14, just like you said. And I pulled up some statistics here. Considering Ferrari's start to the season, I mean, Ferrari, they won in Division 3 at Monaco, and they also won. They actually have 2 wins, I believe, so far this season. They won Division 1 in Jeddah and then Division 3 in Monaco. So they have 2 wins on the board, but despite that, they're only 5th in the overall constructors. Granted, this is OCE only. We're still waiting to find out if the NA standings contribute to the overalls, which I know in Division 6, Ferrari really had a tough time of things. I mean, the less we say about the Ferrari race in Monaco Division 6, the better, probably. But regardless, this is really a good chance for a lot of these teams to really step up. Are there any teams in general, at least after the first stage of qualifying, that have impressed you so far?
Actually, I would say so far the most impressive thing is actually the Kick Saubers. That I wasn't entirely sure. We watched H-Town during the preseason. Lucas, I do not believe was a part of the preseason, so this is the first time watching. But both Kick Saubers into Q2, and quite handedly, I believe both of them got into the top 10 of qualifying 1. So far, I think they're the team that have impressed me the most. And you can see, actually, we've got quite a bit of teams who have both drivers, such as Ferrari, Red Bull, and the Kick Saubers, notably.
Haas and Aston Martin as well, so they also have. I think the only teams that don't have both drivers in on this grid at the moment are McLaren, Racing Bulls, and Alpine. I believe are the only ones to not have both drivers in. And now Lucas, I haven't seen him in NA, but I've seen Lucas in Division 6, and this Lucas was driving an Alpine, and he was leading most of Monaco. He got pole position at Monaco on his Rush Racing League debut. So Lucas is a driver I am familiar with, and it's a driver that's definitely got some good pace behind him. So I'm expecting pretty big things here from this Sauber lineup in general, because Sauber historically has been a relatively strong lineup here in Rush Racing League. And even taking a look at the overalls here, Sauber is tied for 2nd place in the overalls. They're tied with Mercedes with 219 points, and they're not that far behind the current overall leaders of Red Bull that have 222 points coming into or after the Monaco Grand Prix. But I will say that whether or not the NA gets counted towards the overalls, these drivers are still going to fight tooth and nail regardless, because if all else, they're going to fight for the NA championships, which, I mean, would be honestly a pretty big honor in itself. Imagine if you're one of the drivers that's kind of in both OCE and NA, and you manage to get be one of the drivers or teams that get trophies in both.
All I can say with that, if that happens, that driver is going to be the envy of the whole Rush Racing League. I wouldn't have any doubt about that. Yeah, actually, you can see that once again. Look at Ty. Ty once again in the McLaren sets the provisional pole for right now in qualifying 2 with a 126, and so Ty will do it again. I'm gonna be very interested to see if he's gonna retire though, I'm gonna be very interested to see if he's gonna retire here in qualifying 2 like he did in qualifying 1.
Yeah, it will be pretty interesting to see what's going to go ahead and happen here in Q number 2. I mean, once again, I mean, you could be at the top of Q1 and Q2, but you could be at the back for Q3 if you make any kind of mistake. So consistency is really the key when it comes to these 3-stage qualifying sessions. Right now, Tai is the driver to kind of keep your eye on when it comes to that consistency. He led Q1, and now he's currently in the lead of Q2, but not by a whole lot. NYC is pretty much knocking at the door of what would be a provisional pole position here. So NYC might be a driver that we need to watch out for too, and Meraki Dawn is showing that we should not sleep on Ferrari, considering their up and down season so far in Rush, particularly with OCE. Meraki is showing that pace he had in McLaren does carry over to Ferrari.
That was a fantastic lap by Meraki, because in the first qualifying he only ran with the mediums. He actually never switched back to the softs to run another lap. So this is the first lap we've seen him running the softs, and you said that is a great thing to do for Ferrari, for the team as a whole, and he still has that pace. It doesn't matter. It doesn't look like it matters if it's a McLaren or Ferrari. It looks like he just has the pace, and he knows what he's doing. And I've been in many races with him, and I can say that he is a very good driver, and I'm excited to see what he does.
And there's so many unknowns when it comes to the season, because, I mean, some drivers have it's interesting because you have some drivers that only race in the NA division, and then you have others that race both in NA and OCE. So, and I mean, it's interesting because if we look at NYC Gaming, who I believe is making his full-time Rush Racing League debut here tonight in the Racing Bulls, he's doing better than some of the drivers that are in Div 5 and Div 6 in OCE, which the OCE drivers, well, if you race in both OCE and in NA, then you do twice as many races. But like we also mentioned earlier, OCE hasn't hit Miami yet since we started F1 25. The last time we did Miami was in the beginning parts of last season, and we were still on F1 24 at that point because 25 wasn't even out yet. So it's been a while since Rush Racing League has come to Miami, as NYC already retires once again. So a early retirement there for the Racing Bulls, but I mean, can they stay there is the problem, because all the drivers that are in the drop zone have yet to set times.
Yeah, and I'm going to be keeping my eyes on H-Town, because H-Town set a great lap, and I think if H-Town and the Governor are going to set great times, I think that can start to knock people down the order, as if around 7.5 minutes to go here in qualifying 2. You can see already a lot of the drivers setting pace. Not too far of a spread if you really look at all of the drivers, as you'd say that all of the drivers are somewhat close together.
Yeah, I mean, you have the top 4 drivers within half a second of the pole time. And then that gap starts to spread out a bit. I mean, you have the 1.2 second, 1.3 second, and then you pretty much have the P5 to P7 within 2 seconds of that pole time. And then you have, and then this pretty much 3 seconds spreads out from P1 all the way down to P10. But also, I mean, if this was a division race, like in the OC divisions, like if it was a Div 6 race, or like a Div 4 race or something of that sort that has a lot of drivers in more closer to similar skill gaps, then seeing this kind of spread would be kind of interesting, and some evaluations would be made on moving drivers up and down. But since there's only a singular NA division, this is the kind of thing is to be expected. Hopefully we can get some, I would love to see NA grow to be as big as OCE. That would be absolutely fantastic. And if you guys do want to go and join and partake in either the OC division races or the North American races, let us know and we will work to give you a Discord link so you can join in, and our amazing admin team will go ahead and get you set up, and hopefully we'll see you on the track at either Qatar or the next race here in the NA division.
Yeah, and the same thing with us. If you guys are watching the stream and you guys think, hey, I would be interested in helping out with the races, in being either a steward or a broadcaster like what we're doing, then we have a place for you guys as well that you guys can join in, and always looking for more people to help. So if you guys are interested in helping out and joining, then you guys can, again, go ahead and join the Discord, and we will be happy to get you set up, and we'd be happy to see you in the broadcast booth, same in the track.
Apparently, you're being told to turn the music off, although I don't even hear music, so I'm not sure where that music would be coming from, but,
Yeah, I am currently messing with the settings. I think OBS might be having a moment with it, so I am currently making sure that it works. As OBS always has fun times.
I was gonna say, it's typical OBS shenanigans. So we do apologize for that, and we do appreciate you guys letting us know that that is an issue. We will work to fix it. In the meantime, Q2 is going on pretty interestingly. Two drivers have retired early who are confident in their lap times. They're not going to give it another go. And 3 out of the 4 drivers in the drop zone have yet to set lap times. So that would be the H-Town Realtor, the Governor, King Kong, and John are the only driver. Well, John has set a lap time, but he is still in the drop zone. But they're all still in the pits. And with about 4 minutes left to go, then it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out, because I have seen many times before where somebody in the position of like H-Town or Governor or King Kong goes from not setting a time to being right up there within the top 5.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the big unknown factor about qualifying, is that like you never really know who is going to be setting the best laps, because you'll see a couple people where they'll be consistently be doing well, such like Meraki Dawn or Ty, but then you'll see someone who may not have set a lap, or someone who maybe didn't get it quite as good of a lap, and they'll just shoot up the leaderboard, and that can really mess with things and really change the landscape of how qualifying goes. Because if someone goes ahead and sets a really good lap and knocks someone in the drop zone, that might force the other driver to say, wait a minute, may need to go out and set another lap to do it. And that may even play into the strategy, because as anything can happen in a race, having more tire sets is never a bad thing.
Oh, 100%. And another thing too is that in my time of being a commentator here at Rush Racing League, I have seen, I can actually bring up a semi-recent example. In the first official points-paying race of Division 6 in its history, which was last season at Monza, there was a driver named Ziff. Ziff got the top time in Q1, and then was knocked out at P15 in Q2. The same driver that topped the times in one session was knocked out at the very bottom of the next session. And there was no weather changes either. It was just perfectly dry weather throughout the entirety of that session. And then the race would go on to be dry as well. So, I mean, things can happen, but I'm actually really surprised. Gags he jumped up quite a bit there. The Turkish driver doing fantastic. And Caxel jumps up 46 hundredths of a second away from Meraki Dawn. And this is close. Now we're at a point where the top 4 or top 3 are separated by less than 1/10 of a second for the top 3.
Yeah, that was an absolutely fantastic lap. Yeah, you can see how close they all are together in the top. And I think Gags and Caxel's lap is actually going to force the issue, what we were talking about earlier, because you can see the Governor and H-Town are both on their own flying laps, as John, King Kong and the other Red Bull, H-Town, and the Governor are right now in the drop zone. So this is going to be a very interesting ending to see who's going to be able to get out of the drop zone with a really fast lap.
Yeah, right now King Kong is done because he doesn't have enough time to get out and do a lap because he's still in the pits. He would have had to get out now. I'll let you take this lap as the governor, as he's going to go ahead and try to put a lap time down before the session ends.
I gotcha. As we are on board with the governor, going into a somewhat tight right-hander, usually in second or third gear, and now we enter the S's, where this has been, for some reason, this has been the area where most of the drivers today have been struggling. We've seen at least 3 cars who have all crashed in those S's, but the governor taking them very well. And going to another somewhat tight left-hander, and now the first of 2 very long straights here in Miami, and then DRS zone comes up toward the end, and this might be one of the best overtaking spots here on the track as you go from max speed down to second gear, just around 60 miles an hour. And probably the most interesting part is this really tight and narrow chicane underneath the overpass, very slow through here, and it goes and opens up into the longest straight on the track. As again, this is another great opportunity to overtake with the ERS and DRS, and then the very sharp turn where I myself have had many issues coming through this turn, but the governor taking it with absolutely no issue. And then the left and a short right, DRS open, and there's the time, and he's gonna go up into 7th, passed out of the drop zone, and we'll see as there's multiple drivers who are gonna try and set a best time. Lucas is right there, and Lucas is not gonna improve, but H-Town improved up into 7th.
So that's a Sauber out, and John is not gonna improve either. He went too deep into the final corner of the track. He went super deep and just got eliminated. So the drivers we have lost Lucas, GM Reigns, John, and King Kong, who in the Red Bull was unable to set a lap time. It's a very unfortunate end, but a fantastic lap for H-Town and Governor, going from the bottom to right about the mid part of this Q2 ladder. So that is pretty much this qualifying session done and dusted. And now we get ready for Q3 once the in-game timer has decided to run out.
Yeah, that's a great qualifying session there, and especially looking at mostly the drivers who were able to really jump up, like looking at H-Town, Governor, Gags, and Caxel, who set really good times to leap up. And actually, funny enough that we say that, but Caxel actually wanted to ask us a question. He said, who do you guys think is going to be on pole? Currently, my prediction, I am going to put my faith in Meraki Dawn, and so far he has looked dominant in his racing here at Miami, and that's who I'm going to pick.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good solid pick. I mean, Meraki Dawn, he had almost a top 3 time in the mediums in a Q1 and a top time in Q2, but Caxel and Gags are not super far behind. So I'm actually going to make a wild prediction. I think Gags is going to have a good shot at getting pole here because this time in the Haas is really close. If I were to kind of make it to a top 3, I think it's really going to be between Meraki, Caxel, and Gags. I think those are the most likely 3. But I'm going to go ahead and put a wild card out and say it's going to be Gags in pole for the Haas.
That's going to be very interesting to watch because Gags has been putting in great times, especially in that last qualifying. Put in an absolutely fantastic time. So it's going to be really interesting. I think one thing of note, surprisingly, Ty set the original lap, and eventually he got knocked down to, I believe, 5th. But he never went out and completed another lap. So I guess it helps out for him to make sure that his tires are good. But I was kind of surprised that he didn't go out to set another time. But I guess it's all the same as as he's in Q3 anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and what this does, it gives you some extra sets of tires to go out and set kind of these early laps to kind of try to get this track to its final rubbered in state, because we know track evolution is really going to pay off, especially in some of the trickier parts of the track, like the S's and like that really weird chicane just before you start the third DRS zone. So, I mean, there's a lot to play for here. And now with this track being rubbered in, this track is probably going to be the grippiest it's been in the entire session. And using the already used up tires allows you to have a chance to set some good laps to kind of get a feel for how the track is like evolving. And then it's even putting more rubber down. So when you do switch to that brand new set of soft tires, you can have a blistering lap time.
Yeah, that's not much really I can add. You really hit everything perfectly. That as the qualifying goes on, the track will have more and more rubber on it, and it's going to be very interesting, as you said, that they set down blistering lap times. But it's going to be interesting to see who will set the absolute most blistering time of them all, and just see which one has the best time that they can possibly set. And I don't think we may see it. This might be a commentator curse, but we did get through Q2 with no crashes in the S's. So I'm hoping that we were able to see that through to Q3. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see how all this will pan out.
Yeah, I think early on, I think the big thing is that the S's were really slippery in the first qualifying session, because a lot of rubber hasn't been laid down on the track yet. Now we've been through 2 qualifying sessions, so the S's are probably the grippiest as they're going to be throughout this entire race weekend here in Miami. So I don't think we're going to see any more wrecks through the S's, but I think we're going to start seeing some teams really start kind of bunching up together. So this really is going to play in the hands of Haas and Ferrari, where their teammates could give them a very nice tow through the DRS zone in Sector 2 and also the backstretch.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see, because there's a lot of time to be gained and lost on this track. And I think that's kind of what makes Miami very interesting, is the fact that you can have a very, very good car to go with straight line speed, but at the same time, then you'll have issues in the turns. But you can't sell out for the turns, because then you'll be slower in the straight. So I just think Miami is one of those unique tracks where you can really kind of mix and match and just see what time can be won or lost. As I will note that Caxel does have wing damage, but also New York City Gaming setting the provisional pole for now with a 1 minute 25.723. And he got through Q2. We didn't mention his name quite as much in Q2, but already he's going to set the best possible time here so far in Q3.
Indeed, yeah, and it's interesting that quite a lot of these drivers have yet to actually set times. A few of these drivers did their early laps and then just ended up into the pits. And so far, actually, most drivers have actually done that. They've pulled straight into the pits after their initial lap attempt. Probably on used up tires, I would imagine. We can actually check that. So, actually, no, some of these were actually brand new tires that they ended up doing a weird banker lap type situation on. So, interesting what these drivers are trying to do. Now, if I were the Haas's or the Ferraris, I would definitely try to plan my car positioning on track to go ahead and I want to be near my teammate to either give them a tow or be given a tow, especially because the tow can be so strong here around this track, and it would really help. And for both of our predictions, for Marakidan and Gags, that would really help them out a lot, and it would give them an extra chance that the other drivers don't have.
Yeah, that is very true, especially with having your teammate. And I mean, you predicted Gags. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a situation where Governor would give a tow to Gags to try and get a faster lap time. And sort of the same thing, we could see that with the Ferraris, but yeah, it would just be very interesting to see how that team dynamic will come into play as the qualifying will go on. And already you can see half of the field right now has set a lap time, and New York City still in the provisional pole for now. Umbreon in second. I saw that Umbreon set a purple sector 2 so far, and Umbreon was set a 1 minute 26.562, so still a considerable distance separating number 1 from number 2, but so far there's still 4 drivers who have not put down a lap time yet.
Yeah, indeed, and also, I mean, it's a pretty big gap, too. I mean, P1 through P3 is separated by just about a second, and then you go immediately P4, and it's 2 seconds between the Wildcat and NYC. So, it's a pretty interesting spread here of times, but there's also a good chance that these drivers... I mean, it doesn't look like they're really using, like, used-up tires, so they're not on archaic tires by any stretch. They may be on some of the 1 lap old tires that they used in maybe Q1 or Q2 to set like a banker lap essentially, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting that we are about halfway through this final qualifying session of the qualifying time here. So this is our third and final qualifying session, and so far half of the field has yet to set a time, but about almost half, about 40% of the field is yet to set a lap time, with Miraculon and Caxel, 2 of the favorites to get pole position here. And then you have Tai and H-Town yet to set times. Meraki is out on an outlap now, so a few drivers on an outlap. Wildcat is on a lap himself. He's definitely not feeling it. That time is definitely not a representative lap, so he's going to call it into the pits. That time was looking really rough there for the Ferrari man, so... 2 cars on an outlap. It looks like Nemesis is actually about to go ahead and start a lap. Currently in P5, 2.3 seconds behind pole time. And we'll see if Project Nemesis can be a menace to these drivers up at the front. We're going to go ahead and take you through a lap with the Mercedes man. And we're going to go ahead and put foot to the floor, pedal to the metal. He's going to burn some of that battery. He's going to fire up the DRS. And he is away on his lap. So he's going to go ahead and go deep on the brakes. Very nice, hugging the apex. Very nice stuff here on those soft tires. Getting so much grip considering how much this track has rubbed in. Now he's getting a face full of sun here, as the sun shines brightly here in Miami. Now he's going through the S's with that very brutal sun in his eyes. That's probably not making things super easy. But he handles this really awkward right-hander very nicely. Now he's going through the full speed S's. The very slight S's here. Firing up the DRS once again. He's going to go ahead and burn a little bit of battery. He's not really burning the battery too much. I think he's actually harvesting battery. So trying to keep all that battery for the final DRS zone, which is really the best shot to actually utilize the full DRS. So he's going to go ahead and make his way through the twisty bends, through the chicane, under the overpass. Going to use a good amount of curve there, and now he's going to go ahead and burn the battery. He started off with 75% battery, and he's just going through that battery, down in the 50% battery. Now in the DRS zone, he is trying to make things happen. He's trying to jump up a position and start from the best possible position. You can hear the tires squealing a bit as he goes hard on the brakes, burning the ERS once again. Is this time going to be good enough? It won't be a pole time, but it'll be an improvement ahead of the Ferrari man.
Yeah, that was a great lap. Thank you for taking us through that lap. And that was a good improvement for Nemesis. That the first lap didn't quite live up to, I think, the expectation that he wanted, but that second lap, absolutely a great job. As now you can see, actually almost everyone now is on their lap. Is now my prediction, as Meraki Dawn also on a lap coming down the front stretch, about to set a time. We'll see where it puts him, as he will not get pole. Meraki Dawn currently in second place behind New York City Gaming, and he's also on his outlap. So very interesting. New York City Gaming retaining provisional pole.
And he's on outlap too, so he's going to look to improve the already impressive lap time there that he set a 1:25.723, 3.7 tenths of a second ahead of Meraki Don. Meraki Don was your prediction to get pole, and my prediction for pole is 9.24 tenths away from NYC Gaming. NYC Gaming has come out of the woodworks to go ahead and surprise us all with a provisional pole position, but there's some really rapid drivers on outlaps now. So Caxel is going to go ahead and start a lap, and I'm going to let you take this one away.
Yeah, we're on board. Yeah, we're on board with Caxel as he goes down the front straight. I will also make note that Ty has retired from the session. He did not put down a lap time, so more than likely that will put him in 10th place for starting. But now we head into the S's here on board with Caxel and staying right on the edge of track limits, as the S's can be a little bit interesting in track limits, as you don't want to get too much of the flat curbs there, but they definitely help you gain that little bit of extra grip as he'll hit DRS. And right now he is kind of the same thing as Nemesis, harvesting as much energy as he can going down that straight, as now that will be the end of qualifying, as Meraki Don and Nemesis are the first ones to finish, and Caxel will head into the very slow and awkward chicane, as probably saving as much ERS as possible, but now deploying it down the very long straightaway. And actually, surprisingly, he's giving somewhat of a little bit of a tow. As you can see, there's a line behind Caxel with Umbreon, I believe that is H-Town, yeah, H-Town and New York City. So it's going to be very interesting to see if that's going to have any sort of an effect, as Caxel will come across the line in P5, and now H-Town will come across the line as well, and he will be up into P7, and New York City will reset the fastest lap. He will beat his own time with a 1:25.362. And now we'll go to your prediction, as Gags right now is coming down that front straightaway. He is currently in P4, trying to get as much time as possible. And now he's going to abandon it into the pits. So he's going to stay there, and Governor's into the pits as well, and that's qualifying.
That is qualifying done and dusted, and NYC Gaming, he's driving here. He is in pole position here in Miami. I mean, he did something that the New York Giants could not do, and he took a victory in Miami. Actually, I don't know if that's even correct, but we're going to roll with it anyway. NYC Gaming on pole position here in Miami on the home turf of the Miami Dolphins. Excellent. I mean, none of us were expecting that, so massive kudos to NYC in the Visa Cash Out Racing Bowl. What a job he did. I mean, that is absolutely fantastic work there from the Racing Bowl. And to go ahead and round up our top 10 here in qualifying, NYC Gaming 7 tenths ahead of Meraki Don in qualifying. Then it's Detect, Umbreon, Gags, Caxel, Nemesis, H-Town Realtor, the Wildcat, the Governor, and Tai, who retired without setting an official lap time here in Q3. I mean, that was a very crazy session towards the end of qualifying.
Yeah, absolutely crazy session, and congrats to NYC for getting the pole position, an absolutely flying lap. And I'm a little bit shocked with how everything got set. I'm not entirely sure why the Haas drivers decided to abandon their laps there at the end. Maybe they had an invalid lap or something I didn't see. But an absolutely amazing qualifying, and you already know that the new driver there in New York City has got to be ecstatic with pole position here in his first official race here in North America.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, he's got to be obviously very excited, and as he should be, because that was a blistering lap there towards the end. That was a very fantastic thing to see, and I don't know if this is still true, but did you know there's a little bit of extra irony in the NYC driver being in a Red Bull, because I believe in Major League Soccer, I think the New York soccer team is known as the New York Red Bulls, and they have white as a primary color. So that's a little bit of a sports fun fact for you today, even though I don't watch soccer or football, like, at all. I saw one match while I was in Orlando, because Orlando has a soccer team that's actually not bad. I mean, I don't know how they stack up to the rest of the world, but it was pretty fun. Anyway, speaking of fun, we're about to go ahead and get it going here with the first race of the season in Miami. And it's lights out and away we go here in Miami under the blazing Florida sun. And that did not take long for Meraki Don to go in and slingshot into the lead. A fantastic start for the Ferrari. And there's a massive gaggle of cars here in the back. It is a V car, it is a Aston, and it's a Red Bull. It is Pedro, GM, and King Kong all getting involved in some kind of scrap very early on. And H-Town actually had a very rough start. He's already 4 seconds off of the back of the pack.
Yeah, I believe he spun coming out of turn 1. He doesn't have any damage to his car, so I think it was just a spin on his own. But you can see all of the drivers are somewhat close together, and Meraki Don had an absolute amazing launch as now the Racing Bull is going to go to the inside. And is he going to hold it? Not quite. A great job by Meraki Don to stay there and keep his foot in the door and able to hold on to the lead for now.
Oh! Gags is out.
No.
Gags is out. He collided with a wall, and that is a VSC. So no safety car. Oh, never mind. It is a safety car now. The main way you can tell the difference for those of you who may be new to F1 and F1 League racing is that if it's a full course caution or a virtual safety car, the track map will turn solid yellow and there will be no yellow dot on the map. But if you see the yellow dot, you're not seeing Renault rejoin Formula 1. You're seeing that is the marker for the safety car. So if there is a yellow dot, it is a safety car. If it's no yellow dot, then it's a VSC.
So notably as well, Gags also did DNF'd here, but also notably Pedro as well. I believe Pedro crashed into Gags on that same turn, and Pedro is also out of the race. So that is 2 drivers out in the very first lap. So already Miami holding no punches and taking no prisoners. As you can see, some people would pit, I believe that was, Cam and H-Town, who pit probably for any and if all repairs that they needed to do if there was a front wing issue or something like that. But the safety car will bunch up all of the drivers again, and we'll essentially have a second restart.
Indeed, yeah. The safety car will probably come in at the end of lap 3, so it'll be beginning of lap 4 that we go ahead and get going here with racing action once again. I don't think it's going to come in at the end of this lap because we still have to have Cam and H-Town go ahead and catch on up to the back of the safety car. But I mean, it is chaos here in North America, and typically when things get crazy in Florida when there's driving involved, it's usually due to the rain, but it is very sunny out here in Florida.
I like that. That was good. But yeah, so far I'm actually kind of surprised that the weather hasn't been a factor. That you would think with how different the weather can be in Florida, where it's raining for 5 minutes and then it is bright and sunny, that I'm actually kind of surprised that so far the weather has been not a factor. Now, that's not to say that it won't be for the rest of the race, but so far here in the start, it's not really had any sort of an effect.
Yeah, I mean, as the native Floridian here at Rush Racing League, I can 100% confirm, and even just earlier today, it was kind of like that, where it was like, it's pretty, I mean, it's still pretty overcast looking out of my window right now, but it was sunny, like, in the morning, and then rain, and then kind of back to being neutral at this stage. But even in other parts of Florida, it is just, Florida is kind of like London in the sense of just extremely unpredictable weather. And weather changing pretty much at the drop of a coin. So actually, looking at the IRL weather in Miami right now, I'm gonna say it's not bad because it's not bad by Florida standards, but it is 82 degrees Fahrenheit there with overcast, and it's supposed to rain shortly after we stop this race here.
So you are very familiar with the conditions that our drivers are experiencing currently. It's almost the exact same weather that I am also currently a native southeastern U.S. Enjoyer, and currently almost roughly the same thing, a little bit more overcast, but still in the low 80s. So me and you are very familiar with everything Miami and Southeast.
I mean, for the longest time, I actually drove 30 minutes to work to and from, actually to come here for Rush Racing League to go ahead and hijack an office computer to do my stuff. And my car doesn't have AC. So driving in Florida summer, no AC. I mean, at least these drivers have a mostly open cockpit, so they're getting blasted straight in the chest with 200-mile-an-hour winds, which has got to be at least somewhat cool for the drivers. Pun entirely intended, by the way, but yeah. So we're about to go back and get racing here. It'll be the start of lap 4. We'll actually go ahead and try to get some clean racing laps in. We have lost 2 drivers. We have lost Gags and Pedro. And then it's the Ferrari of Meraki Don going to lead us to green. He goes ahead and punches the throttle. And we're back into racing conditions. The green flag flies. And we are back racing here in Miami in the Florida sun. Meraki Don getting a very good launch here to kick things off. Pulling a bit away from NYC. But we'll see if that stays through the S's, because the S's, you can really make or break your time here.
Yeah, and I will say a very interesting detail. First off, H-Town, an absolutely great leap up. Originally, he was in 16th, and now he's leaped up into 13th. He is making all sorts of moves in the midfield. But also, again with H-Town, he had originally pit, so he had to pit for repairs and go on the hards. But so far, he's the only one. As now, look at this, an overtake for the lead, and it is going to stick. New York City back in the lead with a move around the outside, and New York City and the Racing Bull is able to retake the lead from the Ferrari.
What a maneuver there from NYC. The rookie is not backing down, not giving up, not giving an inch. He could not care less about the prestige of Ferrari and their massive history within the sport. He wants a position, and he's going to drive into that position, and he's going to go ahead and just take it in the lead. And he's pulling off a pretty decent gap too, about 0.6 of a second already of a gap. And he also got fastest lap too with a 1:29. So that is a very strong performance here from the New York driver.
Yeah, great performance indeed so far. But I will say something that is interesting is that now DRS has been enabled, and just as long as Meraki and Caxel and Umbreon can all stay within a second of each other, they are going to have DRS, as it should be already active as we head into the first DRS zone here of the lap. And I believe that they do have DRS. Yes, they do. So now with DRS active, it's going to be very interesting, because now on the straights they have that sort of advantage, but so far it looks like New York City is unfazed.
Yeah, it looks like even in the first part of that DRS zone, NYC actually was gaining on Meraki Don, actually pulling away a bit there. The gap did close back up a bit, and it's going to get closed again.
Oh, and we have a McLaren around.
Oh, and the 2 McLarens actually. Oh, so Tai and King Kong are kind of glitched into each other now. They're ghosting inside of each other. I guess that's one way to make 2 cars go into one corner at the same time. Just go ahead and phase into each other. They're still phased into each other, I believe. So they're still ghosted on at least my screen. Okay, I think they finally got unghosted. but those cars are so close together. Oh, they're still ghosted together. These cars are kind of merged 2 into 1 as Tinto gets a 10-second penalty for
and
speeding
Tinto's
in the pits.
out.
He's also going to retire. And these cars are still in the pit, or still phasing into each other. It's like I'm watching Crash Tag Team Racing, where you can just merge 2 ghost cars into 1.
So already, and I will say, at the battle at the front, Umbreon overtook Caxel, but you can see that now there's a 2-second gap between Umbreon and Meraki Dawn. So you can see that New York City and Meraki Dawn are taking, kind of taking the lead in by themselves, as they're really forming the gap. And you can see that there already is a couple penalties. Both of them are for corner cutting, as they say in the game, but violation of track limits. So, but already I will say from preseason, that is somewhat of an improvement, that there aren't as many penalties. As you could probably relate that Canada and Spain was all over the place with the penalties.
Indeed, yeah. So they were very penalty-heavy tracks. Not as, I mean, there's still a good amount of places where you could run off the track, but not as many places to really run off the track, as a few drivers are coming into the pits. The governor is going to be the next driver to go ahead and jump into the pits. Now, I wonder if he's going to go onto the hard tire and try to make it to the end here. He's got hard tires in the box. He's going to go ahead and equip them. And the number 83 Haas machine is going to go ahead and drive out. And he's going to rejoin ahead of the McLaren, as there's a yellow flag. Once again, it's a Sauber in the wall. I think it's H-Town, or H-Town just got spun around. He does have a safe rejoin. He's going to pull off of the racing line. He allows Governor to go through. And now he's going to go to get back to racing speed. But H-Town in general is just, so far in the NA League, the Houston native has kind of struggled. And he's opening stages and he's into the wall. He is out.
Yeah, out indeed in the S's, and the S's will claim another one, and so far that'll trigger the virtual safety car. For right now, it's a full course yellow, and I wouldn't be surprised if this triggers a full safety car, and if it does, that might give the leaders a chance to pit. As you can see, probably they'll all go on to the hard tires, but yeah, not a great race there from H-Town here in Miami.
Yeah, not a great start now, indeed. Now, I mean, it was already that case before H-Town DNF, but now with the Rush Racing League scoring system, as long as you go ahead and as long as you finish, you're going to get points, because we have the points for the top 15. And Project Nemesis jumps it just by a bit. Caxel gets another 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pits. So a few drivers getting caught out by the safety car timing. So Meraki Dawn, I think, took your suggestion and went ahead and pitted in for the racing for the hards. No, he's on the. Never mind, he is on the hard tires. I looked at the wrong Ferrari there. So I looked at Wildcat, and Wildcat's on the mediums, but Meraki Dawn did pivot to the hard tire, and he's gonna try to go to the end of this race. Now the question is, can NYC go ahead and continue to push hard and to try to make his in-lap good, or even just try to. Because potentially what he could do, now there's 2 potential routes he could take. He could try to make these next 2 laps really strong and then go ahead and try to box in for the hards to go to the end of the race. Or he could push well into the teens and maybe even the 20s and then slap on a set of soft tires. Either way, he's going to have fresher tires in the end than Meraki Dawn. So I'm very curious to see how the strategies are going to go ahead and play out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, because it's going to be either the fresher tires that New York City and the leaders are running right now, or is it going to be the undercut? Because we've seen that the hard tires are actually pretty good so far on this track. As H-Town, before he DNF'd, he was on the hards, and he was in, at the time, last place in 16th. And as he got the tires warmed up, he was passing people more and more. And you can see, like that, Reigns gaining 2 positions there on the hard. So it's going to be interesting to see if that undercut going onto the hard tires is going to be the way to go, or will pushing and getting as much life out of the mediums as possible is going to be the way to win this race.
Indeed, yeah. So, I mean, we'll see how this all plays out. John gets a 10-second time penalty for speeding into pit lane. It's unfortunate there for the rookie Alpine driver who is currently in the top 10. He's in the pits now, so he'll probably lose another position or two. I think he also made a swap to the hard tire. Yes, he did. He switched to the white-walled hard tires as he makes his way out of the pits in the P14. He's still going to get points. He'll get 2 points if he finishes there. With Rush Racing League, you get points down to the top 15. And to answer the question in the chat, H-Town was claimed by the S's and turned his Formula 1 car into a tricycle. So he is out of the Grand Prix. And once again, King Kong and Ty were both ghosted. I think they're just permanently ghosted at this point. I don't think it's any cause for concern, because I know sometimes we have seen similar glitches for that, and then we have ended up in a red flag situation, which... Oh, no!
Oh!
NYC 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pits. Oof.
And that is really going to hurt the chances. But you can see, so far, the majority of the people who are on the medians are going to pit now, as NYC will also go to the hards. But Umbreon did not pit. Umbreon chose to stay out, but so far it looks like the undercut from Meraki Dawn is going to work, as if Umbreon comes into the pits, it looks like Meraki Dawn will have provisional lead for now. But yeah, that 10-second penalty is really going to hurt for New York City.
Yeah, even if New York City does get passed on track, it's going to be a world of pain trying to get that 10-second gap, unless Meraki Dawn's pace just falls off of a cliff, and if its Ferrari decides to not want to function as a Ferrari, and he just loses so much time lap after lap after lap, which is something I don't really foresee happening. So, I mean, in this game in particular, I've noticed that the speeding in the pit lane penalty is way more prevalent than it has been in previous installments, because it feels like almost every race that we have done in any division, in any in either region, whether it's OCE or NA, it's just been that 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane has gotten quite a few drivers this game.
Yeah, that is true. I have also noticed that the speeding in the pit lane has been, it seems like, more and more of a critical factor, because the 10-second penalty really hurts. But we actually have a question from the chat that we think, if they're asking if we think that people could be two-stopping, and I would be very curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Unless there's damage, I don't really see a two-stop really working out for anyone. I don't think that I don't know, really, because it's kind of always hard to get a read on the tires in this game. I mean, look how quick, though, NYC is pretty much already called to the back of Meraki Dawn, pretty much right up his gearbox, so there's definitely pace on the newer hard tires. But the real question is, how much is that drop-off going to affect these drivers as Meraki Dawn loses that position out to NYC? I don't think there's going to be a two-stop. I think just because of how close a lot of these cars actually are, I don't really think a two-stop would be a viable choice. But what are your thoughts on this, Game Hawk?
I do think that it might become viable depending on the events on track. Because actually, as we've gone on, the clouds have been becoming more and more cloudy. And if you look at the strategies like what Umbreon is doing, I wouldn't be surprised if Umbreon comes in to pit this lap. But you can see he went 11 laps on the medium so far, and so far it's worked out. You can see the hards have a little bit better pace, as yes, Umbreon will come in for the pits. But I think it's just going to depend, because I think if a safety car ends up coming out, I would not be surprised to see a lot of the cars dive in to use a either use a soft tire, or maybe think about pitting, or just kind of rethinking the strategy depending on what happens. But maybe they'll be able to go to the end on the hard tires, but it's still kind of, as you said, up in the air just because of the wear model that they have in this game.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, if this was up on 24, then I could honestly see somebody trying that strategy. I did mention earlier that it could be a potential possible strategy for NYC earlier on. I proposed as like an alternate strategy for him to potentially try, but I mean, right now NYC does have about a 1.3 second gap, so he needs to really put the hammer down if he wants to go ahead and try to build out that 10-second gap to Marakidan if he still wants to win this race. At this point, he's not going to drop down below Caxel, so he'll only drop the second place, and even then, Caxel himself does have a time penalty. So he's pretty much, he's not in danger of losing the podium, but I know NYC would love nothing more than to get that win.
Yeah, and I think it's just going to be, as we go further and further into the race, it's just going to be interesting to see how things will develop, especially because you can see people were using different strategies, especially here if you're looking at the tire life. Nemesis has yet to pit. Nemesis is 11 laps on the mediums, and Caxel notably as well, he started on the mediums and went from the mediums to the mediums instead of going to the hards as everyone else did. So you can see that there's multiple different strategies that are all being used by different drivers and different teams, and you can see that some of them have really, really good pace. That you can see how far New York City Gaming is really pulling out ahead of Meraki Dawn. It's just unfortunate that that time penalty is really going to hurt him, but it's just going to come down to one of these two drivers, and it's going to be a question of if Meraki Dawn can stay within that 10-second gap.
Indeed, and I did actually, during that, when you were talking, I was actually looking into some statistics. If NYC Gaming did win here in Miami, he would actually do something that no NFL team, or no New York NFL team, I should say, has done, and take a win in Miami, at least as of 2024. Because looking at stats, for those who keep up with American football, or hand egg, as it's sometimes known as, so there's three teams that are labeled as New York teams. You have the New York Giants, the New York Jets, and then the Buffalo Bills. So in the 2024 season, the Jets were the only team that actually played Miami at home, and they lost. The Giants played them, but it wasn't at the stadium, but they lost too. And the Bills did not play the Dolphins. So statistically, if NYC Gaming wins this race here today, which he's already pulled out a 3-second gap from Meraki Dawn, so it might be possible at this point if he continues building this gap, then he will do, as a New Yorker, if he's from New York, he'll do as a New Yorker what no NFL team in the state has done here in Miami.
Yeah, that is a very, very interesting statistic, and that is something that I follow American football, and I did not know that. But right now in the chat, we've got unconfirmed reports that they say that there's a few drops. I'm going through the drivers right now. I'm not seeing it. It is getting a little bit cloudier, but I have not quite seen the drops yet. But especially around Sector 1 and Sector 2, it is getting very dark. So that may come into effect if we start seeing raindrops. That is going to be very interesting. They're saying drivers are reporting rain. Do you see it, Rekus?
I think I see some. I'm not sure if that's like sun particles or actual raindrops. I think I do see some hitting the visor. Potentially, I saw it. I was on board with GM Rains, and I think during some of the underpass sections, I did see something, but I'm not seeing anything now. We do have Caxel coming in and serving his pit penalty that he picked up earlier on in the Grand Prix. A few drivers are coming into the pit, so maybe there might be rain and we're just not seeing it. So actually, it's a new set of slicks for Caxel. He went back on the hard tires, so if there is rain, it's not been reported yet, or it's not noticeable just yet. I'm looking on board with. I'm just going through all the cars right now, and I don't see any rain.
Yeah, I am also
Yeah, I'm not seeing any rain.
I am also not seeing any rain right now, but I will say that it is getting very dark. That as the race has gone on, that it looks like more and more clouds have been rolling in. So I would not be shocked if we start to see some rain falling, but that would really start to shake this race up because we still have just about past halfway of the race to go. So do you think that the drivers would immediately switch to the inters, or do you think that they would try and risk it if we get closer to the end?
No, I think it'd be depending on the driver, because, I mean, for NYC, it might be a good idea to try it just so he can get rid of that penalty that he has, but I was actually just riding on board with NYC, and he got hit straight in the face with the ray of the sun. So, if it is raining, it's not quite there yet. I mean, it would also depend on how many laps are left if the rain does fall. Because, I mean, if there's 3 laps left, then it might be a 50-50 split of some drivers going in and calling that pit stop in to go ahead and make it. But here's the situation that I am kind of thinking in my brain. It's pretty unrealistic, but it is something that we could think about here. Is that if there's 3 laps left to go, if Marakidon pits in for intermediates, then NYC should not. NYC should just stick it out because that would immediately give him the 10-second gap that he needs. It's already at 6.3 seconds. And Marakidon does get a penalty at some point. That's going to make things a lot easier for the Racing Bull driver. But, yeah, I think it would just really depend on circumstance.
Yeah, it would be very interesting, but at this point, I'm kind of shocked that we're not seeing any raindrops because as I've been watching the cars they go around the track, it just keeps getting darker and darker and darker. So it's actually getting to the point that I'm kind of surprised that we're not seeing raindrops right now. But I kind of agree with you that if the rain starts falling, it's going to depend on the driver and what they want to do. But I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if we get toward the end and then the rain starts falling, that there might be a couple drivers who might just try and stick it out to the end because they, especially like NYC, he might try and stick it out because, as you said, he has that 10-second penalty. If other people try and pit for inters, then that may be just enough of the gap that he needs to get away and out of the shadow of his penalty. But it's going to be very interesting coming down to the wire, it seems like.
Yeah, I think it's going to be another very dramatic end to a Grand Prix here in North America, as NYC is still putting in some consistent lap times. He's building that gap up. It's almost 7 seconds. So from what I'm noticing, NYC is taking the corners better than Meraki, but Meraki is getting him on the straights, is what I'm picking up. Because anytime he goes on this particular backstretch, then Meraki does pick up some time. But actually, he's losing time a bit now. So I wonder if he's just trying to save a battery. I can actually look at that. Yeah, so Meraki is saving battery, and NYC is actually deploying on that straight, so essentially giving him a pocket DRS down that back straight to really try to increase that gap. But I wonder if that's going to go ahead and bite him in the coming moments, because he's going to be in a situation where Marakidon does have more battery to play with, and he can use that to slingshot past NYC, and he's going to need that, especially if the prediction in chat is true, where it's supposed to be the final 10 minutes of racing. So maybe around the last 5 or 6 laps or so are supposed to be full of rain. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, because if the rain does come and the DRS gets disabled, then Meraki loses a very important tool and a good amount of utility that he could have had to try to catch him. Actually, now he's burning a good amount of battery too. So him and NYC are both on the same amount of battery at this stage, but I think NYC is deploying a bit more on the straights here and where the DRS zones would be. So very curious to see how this one's going to play out, because it's so hard to predict right now.
Yeah, it is very hard to predict, and especially it's going to get even more interesting is if the rain is 10 minutes away. Something very interesting was that the governor actually peeled into the pits on 10-lap-old hard tires and swapped to a new pair of mediums. So very interesting there. That was his second stop of the race, and you can see there are multiple drivers who have 10 laps in.
So, sorry about that. There was a moment of Caxel and GM Reigns fighting it out tooth and nail, both going wide off into that third sector as these two cars were side by side scrapping it out for position here. And they are still super close to each other. The Red Bull should be able to get the pass done with the DRS. It's going to be enabled right about now, so he's going to burn the little bit of battery he has remaining and try to send it onto the Aston Martin. Is GM Reigns going to go ahead and block him? No, he just goes and brakes early, trying to force Caxel to go deep, but Caxel is up a position. Back to you.
You're good. I didn't know that battle was happening, but that's a crazy battle. But yeah, you can see that Meraki Dawn is now on to 11 laps of hard tires, and there's multiple drivers. Is now almost side by side through turn one was GM Reigns and Caxel. They're still battling it out. But I think that if the rain comes, that might actually benefit those drivers more, because then they get to pit for a fresh set of tires without really losing any time. And ooh, that's going to hurt, as Governor's going to get that 3-second time penalty.
Indeed, yeah, so that's going to really bite him. But now, here's something that's interesting, is that GM Reigns is now ghosting, or getting through the ghosted car of Tai, who is now a lap down, and Caxel is getting past his Red Bull teammate that's ghosted. So it's weird that these cars have been ghosted for about 10 laps now, so I wonder if they somehow bugged the game out where they're just permanently a ghost. I can't say I've ever seen that before in a race here at Rush, or in any F1 race for that matter. But yeah, it's an interesting moment to kind of notice. But the other thing that we should really take notice of is that NYC is just pulling away from Meraki Dawn. And honestly, I think if he pits in for those intermediate tires when the rain does hit the circuit, I think he'll be in a decent spot, because he's in a position where he can pit in before Meraki Dawn, so he'll get out quicker and be able to use a little bit of extra pace to drive a bit quicker coming out of the pits. So I think NYC might have this race in the bag, because I mean, he's not really in undercut range, because ideally, if you're going to go for an undercut, you want to be within 2 seconds.
Oh,
Is
we do
that
have a caution.
Meraki? No, that's Wildcat.
Yeah, Wildcat, it was off in Sector 1. He does get back onto the track. I was wondering if we were going to get a virtual safety car, but I'm not sure. There's no visible damage so far on his Ferrari, so it might have been just a spin around the S's area. So another S's, the car is claimed, and ooh, Caxel had a big slide. Caxel was chasing down Wildcat, had a big slide out of the DRS zone in Sector 2. As now, originally Reigns and Caxel were fighting, and now it looks like Caxel and Wildcat are fighting for position. And oh, Meraki Dawn has gone into the pits and put on the medium. So how about that, actually?
Yeah, I'm curious about this, because I'm actually really curious about this, because if the rain comes in, then NYC can just pit in and basically just negate anything Meraki Dawn has done. It was clear that Meraki did not have the pace on the hard tires, because NYC was pulling in second, or about 10ths a lap against the Ferrari man. So I don't know, because he's got to fight past Umbreon, and Umbreon is under no kind of agreement or even any kind of obligation to let Meraki through. He could fight him tooth and nail and increase the gap even further to NYC. So I don't know if NYC is going to pit in or not. He does basically have about a free pit stop, though, if he does decide to jump into the mediums. But then the question becomes is, oh, here he goes. He does come into the pit. He's taking advantage of that, so he's got a free pit stop. So about in the pits, you're going to lose about 21 to 20 seconds. So even then, he'll still be ahead of... Oh, but here's the thing, too. He's got to wait 10 seconds in the box because of that penalty. So it's a good idea to serve this, because he'll come out, I think, just behind Meraki. And he'll be on fresher medium tires.
Yeah, and now with that, Umbreon is going to take the lead and Meraki Dawn is going to pass NYC. So now this becomes an even more interesting, because now both of the leaders having the freshest tires on being on the mediums. Now, if the rain comes, that is really going to throw everything out the window.
Right. And I mean, that it would. I think actually if the rain comes, and I think Umbreon is going to be the winner off of this because of just one simple fact. He made one less pit stop, so he can come in before Meraki and NYC and go ahead and just continue in the lead of the race. So, I mean, if he can hold on, it's really just dependent on if the rain comes, and I think Umbreon does have this race pretty much bagged up, and Aston Martin can win the first race of the NA season. But then if it doesn't rain, then Meraki is going to be in a really good spot. NYC doesn't have that penalty anymore, and he's not super far behind Meraki. And I wonder if the laps are going to fall off quick enough for NYC to really benefit from this. So the undercut did work out. I mean, especially due to that penalty. I think that's the only reason why Meraki's undercut did work. But I mean, we'll see how the pace is going to play out, because I mean, Meraki does have DRS, so that's going to be a massive advantage towards the Ferrari, as he's now going to go ahead and turn on the afterburns and try to chase down Umbreon. He's on the quicker tire by a long shot. He's on the mediums, which by nature is a quicker compound. And he's on 2 lap old tires versus 11, so he's going to have a lot more grip. This is going to be a traction battle through the S's. We have seen these S's claim so many drivers, and it's a beautiful job from Umbreon to actually kind of pull away a bit. But he's going to send it up the inside as Meraki is going to try, but no! There's not enough real estate. That door gets slammed shut. He doesn't want to hear about his Aston Martin's extended warranty, and he's losing the lead to Meraki Dawn. Had the DRS, had the quicker tires, but look at this! Look how close the Aston Martin is! The Aston Martin is taking advantage and essentially getting DRS itself from Meraki just up ahead. That was really brilliant stuff here.
Yeah, that was a great job by Umbreon to at least stay in the fight of top 3. And I will say we got news from the chat. They're saying that rain is 5 minutes out reported from drivers around lap 27. Around lap 27. So that's really going to throw a wrench in. But I think something else that's going to be very interesting as NYC is going to take second place. I think the interesting thing is that Meraki Dawn in qualifying 1 set a faster medium time, or set a faster time on the mediums than NYC did on the softs in qualifying 1. So that is going to be very interesting. As if to prove me wrong, NYC gets the fastest lap. But Meraki Dawn is very good on the medium. So this is going to come down all the way to the wire, as both of them have very fresh tires.
Yeah, and I mean, here's another thing too, is that NYC is going to go ahead and have DRS. He does have more ERS available. He's got more battery available to him than the Ferrari up ahead. So this is really going to be, although it's not by a huge margin though, as we see down the stretch here in the second DRS zone. He's not even going to wait for the DRS zone. He's going to go ahead and get the pass and take DRS with him. NYC, his pace in a race has just been on another level, and he doesn't have that penalty hanging over him anymore. So, I mean, but the question is, with rain expected on lap 27 out of 29, I mean, it's now just going to be a game of chicken between these two. Who's going to pull the trigger first and jump into the pits, or are both of them going to try to brave it out on the medium tires for the rest of this Grand Prix? Purple Sector 2, though, from NYC, so he's setting faster laps again. He's already pulling out a mighty fine gap to Meraki Dawn, but he is deploying more, so it's so hard to predict here how this is going to finish.
Yeah, it is just, it can really go either way. And I think that just the overlying factor is the rain. I think the rain is the big unknown here, because I think that is going to be the thing that is really going to hurt, because there could be a situation where the rain might start falling, but NYC might already be starting another lap, and Meraki will dive into the pits for inters at the very last second. And if the rain starts coming down, it might make the track worse for NYC. So it's just like there's so many unknown factors. And can you believe that this is only the first race of the season?
Yeah, this is the first time we've seen NYC as well. So, I mean, this is definitely a driver to watch. Speaking of drivers, we have about 5 laps roughly left to go in this race. And I believe it is time to really start trying to pick out who our driver of the day is going to be.
Yeah, that is right. And actually, we just got news that from the chat, they're saying that rain is imminent right now. So it's actually 2 laps earlier than predicted. And going back to driver of the day, I think right now my driver of the day actually would be Zagovernor. Zagovernor has been kind of the consistent factor. It would either be Zagovernor or Umbreon, as both of those drivers have been very, very consistent throughout the whole race. And despite penalties or issues that they had, they've been able to really stay within the top 5 no matter what. And so far, they've been doing absolutely great job.
Indeed, I mean, that's a very good factor as well. But I got to give it to NYC because he took the advantage and he had a 10-second penalty, pitted in, and still had enough pace to go ahead and jump Maraudon and build about a 3-second gap as well, at least 2.5 seconds though. I mean, NYC's pace has just been on another level today, so I'd have to give him driver of the day just from that aspect alone, just from how raw the pace is from this Racing Bull machine. I mean, that pace is on another level. It only took about 2 laps to really put him in the lead and with a 3-second gap. So here's the crazy part about that is he could go ahead and get himself a track limit penalty and still win this race. So, I mean, if push comes to shove, he can really send it through a corner, get that penalty, and still take victory here.
Yeah, that is very true. And that is a great argument for driver of the day for New York City. Just the absolute raw pace has been something that we haven't even really seen in... That was, NYC had a panic moment. Yeah, had a panic moment almost. But his raw pace has not been something that we've seen even in the preseason. So for this to be the start of the season, just absolutely crazy pace to start off with, as the clouds are really dark, but I don't know. I am not quite seeing any rain, so it looks like rain might not be a factor for the race. And as soon as I say that, I see drops. The very first few drops I caught on NYC's TV pod camera. So the drops are starting to fall, but I don't think it may not be enough to really warrant any idea of pitting.
Yeah, I can see a little bit of the rain kind of going over from that same camera, I can see the rain kind of flying over the halo and the left rear, or actually both of the rear mirrors now. So it's really just a game of chicken. Do you pin it now for the intermediates or just try to brave it out to the end? This is the kind of situation I was predicting, is that the rain was going to hit at this kind of point, and then it's really just a game of chicken, honestly. It's pretty much who's going to go ahead and break first, who is going to go ahead and just stick it to the end, or who's going to crack and go for the intermediates.
And we might already have an issue. An NYC coming through the chicane slid in exiting the chicane, and then the next left-hander slid there. So he might already be having tire issues.
Possibly, but also Meraki isn't really gaining much either. So, I mean, this is during the sector, this is really the only time he's gaining, and now we can definitely see the rain on the penultimate lap of this Grand Prix. I think at this stage, the drivers are just going to stick it out, because you'd be pitting in for one singular lap, and I don't know if that's really worth how many positions you're going to lose. Umbreon is going to go ahead and make the call, though. He's going to fire off into the pits, get on a set of inters, just to finish off the last bit of this race. There is a good amount of water in that pit lane, though, so I'm not sure, honestly. You got to really think about, is it really worth it? Oh, it's probably going to be worth it for... No, Caxel stays out. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if Umbreon is really going to benefit as much from these tires. I guess we can at least keep him in mind as we go through the final 2 laps of this Grand Prix. But I think in general, I think NYC is doing a better job of managing the pace. I mean, he is pulling tenths of a second now off of the Ferrari, man. He's pulled off like almost half a second in these conditions. So I think NYC is probably going to stick it out, probably not going to jump into the pits, and he's going to try to send this one to the end.
Yeah, I agree that they're gonna try and just stick it out to the end. It will be more interesting in the midfield because GM Reigns is on 20-lap old hard tires, so it's gonna be interesting to see those types of drivers what they do. As no pit from NYC and no pit from Meraki Dawn. So here we go with the final lap of the race as NYC will start it with a 5-second gap ahead of Meraki Dawn, as the rain slowly is ramping up and getting heavier. And you can see that already NYC had a little bit of a wider turning radius because of the rain. You can see the rain's already starting to affect, but right now this is New York City's race to lose.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, this is a tricky kind of prediction because in these conditions, especially through the S's, I mean, your Formula 1 car is going to resemble more of a Formula Drift car with how you're going to have to drive it. But I think in general, I think it is going to be an NYC victory. I mean, he's pulling out about a second a lap at this point. So he's pulling off like every second or every few seconds he's pulling off a hundredth of a second. So, I mean, he has done a fantastic job to keep that car facing in the right direction. A little bit of a wall tap there, but he's only got a few more corners left to navigate. He's going to go in and turn on the afterburners and just fire it down this back straight. He's going to burn every bit of battery out there. He doesn't have the 10-second penalty anymore, but he's driving like he does. He's driving like he's got something to prove. And this man started on pole position here in Miami and just had insane pace throughout. He had a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, and he still came back to win with a near 7-second gap at the end of the Grand Prix. NYC wins here in Miami, and it's a bit of a slide there. He does collide with the wall coming out of the end, but he is across the line, and that's what matters. Meraki Dawn will come home in P2, with Detect Umbreon going to come home in P3. We'll go ahead and get these drivers in and try to get some interviews with them. Now that the season has started, we will begin to do interviews in the North American division. So, who would you say is your driver of the day?
I don't know. That is a really tough question because I would either say either NYC or Umbreon, as NYC with an absolute raw pace to be from pole to first and just drive in. But the same thing with Umbreon, that he started more toward the midfield, but just through sheer determination on those hards was able to come on the podium. So it's really close.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to give it to NYC just because of that raw pace. I mean, he put down he had a 10-second penalty, so he served it in the pits, came out behind the Aston of Umbreon and Meraki, and then not only did he catch up, he braved the wet conditions and pulled out a near 7-second gap as Caxel is DNF'd on the last lap of the race.
Caxel is DNF'd, and something else interesting, the governor improves into 7th because of an unserved penalty from the Kick Sauber as well. Ooh. So what we thought that the race couldn't get crazier. Look at that, the very last lap we even saw action.
Indeed, I mean we saw the Visa Cash App driver doing a little dance there. I mean, it was a well-deserved win here for the Visa Cash App RB. I mean, what a drive from NYC. I mean, that was just beyond spectacular. Race winner and the fastest lap does go to NYC. And then the cleanest driver is the Wildcat, according to the in-game statistic. So that is a very interesting moment. But anyways, taking a look here at our finishing results, it is NYC Gaming taking a grand slam in this race here, in the first race of the NA season with points. And then we go to Meraki Dawn, Umbreon, GM Reigns, and then we have Nemesis, Wildcat, the Governor, Lucas, Barry, not Barl, Caxel, Cam, John, King Kong, Tai Tai, H-Town, Tinzo, Gags, and Pedro, with the last 4 being our primary DNFs. So, I mean, what a session indeed.
Yeah, what a session and what a start for some of these teams that, especially you talk about Ferrari, if we're talking about the team aspect, Ferrari having a 2-6 finish, and then look at Aston Martin with a 3-4 finish. So not only was it a great win for NYC in the Racing Bull, but it was absolutely a great team win for teams like Aston Martin, where they had both drivers finishing very high on the grid.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very solid time. We're gonna wait and see if we can actually get the drivers. So if you finished on the podium, if you are Meraki Dawn, NYC, or Detect Umbreon, please come on over to the commentary box. We'd like to give you a quick little interview, ask you a few questions, and then we will wrap up the stream here. But anyways, before we get to that, what are your thoughts on this race? Because, I mean, this was a wild race from start to finish here, GameHawk.
Yeah, absolutely. A wild race, wild qualifying even. But it was just very interesting because it seemed like the theme was kind of looming threat, whether it was the 10-second penalties that seemed to be with some of the drivers, or it was somewhat the impending rain coming where we didn't know when it was going to start falling. It kind of just came down to almost like the sheer determination of the drivers. And you could really see the difference, because if you look at like NYC, just how much of a gap he was pulling ahead of the leaders, that it was just very interesting all around just to see all of the different strategies and all of the different ideas start to get thrown around. But yeah, absolutely fantastic race to start off the North American season.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, NYC pulled off a ridiculously strong drive here in Miami, but can he keep it up? We'll be back 2 weeks from now in Imola for a sprint weekend, so that'll be a fun one. We're still waiting to hear about if we're gonna do any interviews. We'll give it another few minutes, and then if we don't have interviews, we will go ahead and wrap up the stream. But yeah, I mean, I love Miami. It's my home track, and it's also probably one of my favorite tracks on the Formula One calendar. It is such a fun track to drive. I mean, honestly, and this is definitely a hot take, it's probably, I would say it ranks above some of the actually established circuits in Formula One.
So actually, we do have a question. NYC is asking, where does he have to go for the interview?
So if you see the live comms box in the Discord server, go ahead and join that, and we'll go ahead and get you for an interview. I would send it in the NA chat, but unfortunately I do not have permissions to send messages in the NA chat.
Oh, I do.
Which
I
is
do
a
see
bit
him.
unfortunate.
I do see him in the comms box.
Oh, he's in the other.
I believe can we drag him?
We'll see, actually.
We cannot drag him.
All right, we can switch over. We're just gonna jump from one Discord to the other.
All right.
So we have NYC here in the commentary box for an interview. NYC, can you hear us?
Yeah, hey, what's up?
All right, so I mean, a very strong drive to kick off your campaign here in the first NA race of the full season here at Rush Racing League. I mean, how did you find it? Because I know it was probably really tricky driving in those wet conditions.
I mean, it was only really wet like the last 2 laps, so it wasn't too bad. Just got to break a bit early. It was fine.
I mean, yeah, you had that 10-second penalty and made up several positions, so that was an incredibly well done job to you. You also got fastest lap and pole, and I think driver of the day as well. So I mean, you pretty much took home maximum points in today's race. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'll take it. It was pretty good. Had to get the 10-second to make it a bit more interesting, I guess. But yeah, it was just a lot quicker, I guess. It's fun though.
I mean, indeed. I mean, the pace kind of spoke for itself here. Next week, it is or sorry, 2 weeks from now, it is Imola with a sprint weekend. So what are your thoughts on Imola?
Well, I'm not gonna be racing. I think that was my only race in this league now, because I gotta head off to college like I think next week and a half. So
As a
just showed up
recent,
for this one as a reserve, yeah, just for fun. But yeah, it was fun though. Good luck to
as
everyone else, yeah.
as a recent college grad myself, I understand the feeling, and I know GameHawk
Yep.
is in college as well. So the collegiate American trio here in this group. Well, that's all I have. I'll pass you over to GameHawk if he's got any questions or comments.
Yeah, I'll just say, even if that was your only race, a very impressive showing. I guess my only question was, how were you feeling once you pulled into the pits in the lead and got the 10-second penalty? Was that kind of like a deflating moment, or was that kind of like, okay, I really got to focus now?
Well, I mean, like, obviously I was annoyed, but I knew I was like way quicker, so I was like, I guess it made it more interesting for me, because I think otherwise it would have been pretty bored. I think I would have won by like 20 seconds, something like that. So I think it was more of like a little challenge to accomplish. So I didn't mind it too much, actually. Made it more fun.
And I noticed that as we went on, there was just all kind of timing thrown around about the rain, where we saw the clouds starting to dark, and we thought it was coming around lap 15, then it got delayed, and then finally it was the last few race laps. Does that kind of go into like the strategy plan? Because you'll pit for different tire types depending on how long you're planning to go on them. But was that kind of uncertainty? Were you thinking about that? About like you didn't know when the rain was coming, or like how did that work into your strategy?
I mean, yeah, well, I knew in the dries it was going to be a two-stop anyway, so I just put the hard second just in case if it came a bit earlier. But I didn't even think it was going to end up raining at the end, because even with like on lap 20, he said like 10-15 minutes left. So I was kind of surprised it actually rained, but at that point it didn't really matter too much anymore.
All right, that is all the questions that I have. I'll send it back over to Rekis.
All right, well, thank you so much for popping on into the commentary box. And yeah, congratulations on pretty much everything you accomplished today. Race win, pole position, fastest lap, driver of the day. I mean, you pretty much took every possible point home with you.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Good luck to everyone else, I guess.
Awesome.
All right, so we do have one more person in the commentary box, and is the third place driver of Detect Umbreon. I'll pass it over to you, GameHawk.
Yeah, so I will say, absolutely great job getting third place. And as we were going through the race, I saw that you were going on a very, very long stint on the hard tires. I think when you pit with almost 16 laps on them. Was that getting concerning toward the end, because you saw that there were more drivers behind you that had pitted, but how were you feeling about that?
It wasn't really about the drivers behind. I knew I had enough of a delta to them to have enough time to pit if I absolutely needed to, which I did end up having to do at the end of the race, just because my front right was at 90. So I was very concerned about a puncture and that just ruining my race. So 2 laps left, I just pitted for inches just to make sure I got to the finish line at third.
Yeah, and that is actually very surprising to hear that you had it up to 90%. I knew that they had to be worn. I didn't know how worn they were, but I guess with all like kind of I'll ask the same question that I had just asked to NYC, that you eventually made the switch over to the inters, and it did work out because you were going to pit anyway. But how did that go into your strategy, not really knowing when the rain was going to fall? Because we didn't know if it was going to hit lap 10 or the very last lap of the race. So how did that all affect your strategy?
I remember hearing that rain was 10 minutes out, I think on like lap, I want to say 12 or 13. So I was just pushing to extend the tires as long as I could. And then I kept hearing the same thing with the rain. And then I just decided I'm just going to go to the end if I can. And if I need a box, I need a box for whatever tire I have at the end, which would have been softs because I had one new set left just in case I needed them. But with how the rain worked out, I didn't need them.
All right, that is all the questions I have. Do you have any questions, Rekis?
So I have a few of them. Well, first of all, congratulations on the podium to kick off the campaign here in NA. So looking ahead, you do have a break, so we're not racing next week, but it's the week after that we're heading to Imola for a sprint weekend. How are you feeling about Imola?
I'm feeling pretty good about Imola. Imola's definitely one of my stronger tracks. I will say Miami, it's not great pace-wise for me. Consistency was a surprise. I was very good in the race, but Imola, I feel a lot more confident in my race pace and also quality pace than I have been at most tracks. So we'll see how that goes.
Indeed, and I guess I should have asked this to NYC as well. But is there anyone you want to thank or shout out before we go ahead and let you go?
All I can say is shout out to Reigns for starting P12 and ending up P5 for a good finish for Aston. That's all I can say.
Indeed, and I mean, I know Aston Martin was labeled Team of the Week throughout the Oceanic League, so you guys are keeping that trend up. I mean, you guys both had a very good race here today, so congratulations on P3, and we will see you next time.
Yep, thank you.
Alright, so that is going to go ahead and wrap things up here at Rush Racing League. The first North America race is in the books, and I think we might have seen the best one-hit wonder in the league with NYC only showing up for this one race of the season, and boy, did he make an impact.
Yeah, that is very surprising to hear that he's only... I mean, who knows? After this, they might try and maybe move him into something else or try to get him to race more. But yeah, absolutely a great race from NYC to get the victory and all of the points as well. It was really, you really couldn't have asked for a better start to the North American series because it had everything. It had rain. It had the different strategy. It had the pace. It had almost like just the sheer determination from the drivers, like Umbreon driving with 90% wear on their front left just to make sure that they retained their position and got to the pit lane. So it just had everything you can ask for, and this really set a precedent for the season.
Oh yeah, I 100% agree with you there, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good pace too. I mean, Aston Martin seemed like they had some really good consistency. I mean, we heard it earlier with GM Reigns starting in P12 and jumping up into P5 at the end of the race, putting some really good points on the table for Aston Martin. Miraculon also had some really good pace too. I mean, for a good while, he was matching NYC step for step, and then the tire difference kicked in, and then NYC's pace really took off. But yeah, overall, that was a very fantastic race. And that's going to go ahead and wrap up the stream here. I do want to go ahead and give a massive sponsor shout out here to Sim Racing Center, to AI369, to Pagny and Sim Labs, to all of our fantastic sponsors. Thank you guys so much for tuning on in. On behalf of GameHawk, my name is Ruckus, and we've been your hosts and commentators for today's race. And we'll see you guys 2 weeks from now in Imola. Have a good night.